February 15th, 1898. A United States battleship blows apart in Havana harbour, and 266 sailors die in the water. Within 48 hours, 2 New York newspapers have named the guilty nation, with no evidence at all. One of them will later spend his fortune punishing what they did here. It isn't the one you'd expect. Joseph Pulitzer owns New York. His World is the biggest newspaper on earth, built from nothing by a penniless Hungarian immigrant. Then in 1895, a mining heir named William Randolph Hearst arrives with millions of his father's money and one instruction: beat Pulitzer at any cost. Any cost turns out to be a very literal phrase. The weapon Hearst buys is almost too perfect. The New York Journal was founded by Albert Pulitzer, Joseph's own brother. Hearst takes it over, drops the price to a single cent, and prints headlines in type so large, one word fills half a page. Pulitzer doesn't laugh. He knows what cheap and loud can do because he invented it. Then Hearst does something no publisher has tried. He walks into the World and buys Pulitzer's entire Sunday staff, every editor, artist and writer, starting with its star, Muriel Goddard. Pulitzer wins them all back in a single afternoon, with higher salaries. Within 24 hours, Hearst has bought them a second time for good. Their next battle is over a cartoon, a bald slum child in a yellow nightshirt called the Yellow Kid, the most popular drawing in America. Hearst buys the artist. Pulitzer refuses to surrender the character and hires a second artist to keep drawing him. For months, 2 rival Yellow Kids run in the same city, and an editor across town names the spectacle Yellow Journalism. Hearst's journal sells for a penny. The World costs 2. Pulitzer halves his price and starts losing money on every copy he prints. Hearst isn't chasing profit. He is spending a mining fortune to bleed a rival dry. And nothing moves circulation faster than blood. And Pulitzer fights this half destroyed. By the mid-90s, he is almost completely blind, his nerves so raw that an unexpected noise causes him pain. He runs the largest paper in the world from a soundproofed room, from a yacht with a silenced engine room. The loudest newspaper in America is edited by a man who cannot bear sound. Then both men find the story that will define them. 90 miles from Florida, Cuba is in revolt against Spain, and Spanish forces are herding civilians into camps where tens of thousands are dying. A real atrocity, and the greatest serial ever handed to a newspaper. Hearst doesn't want to cover a war. He wants an American war in Cuba. Hearst sends the artist Frederick Remington to Havana to draw the fighting. Remington finds a tense, quiet island and cables home that there is no war to illustrate. According to the reporter who told it years later, Hearst answered, "You furnish the pictures, and I will furnish the war." Historians never proved he wrote it, everyone believed it anyway. To prove the journal is more than ink, Hearst stages a rescue. An 18-year-old Cuban girl, Evangelina Cisneros, sits in a Havana jail. Hearst sends a reporter to break her out of prison, smuggles her to New York, and throws her a torchlight reception in Madison Square. His own paper covers the story his own paper created. Pulitzer's staff decide to prove the journal is stealing their work. They invent a casualty, an Austrian officer killed at Guantanamo, Colonel Rayflip W. Thenuz. Hours later, the journal reprints the dead colonel as its own scoop. Then the World reveals the trap. Read the name backwards and it spells, "We pilfer the news." The journal demands a monument to him instead. From here, the papers stop reporting the war and start manufacturing it. Interviews that never happened. Atrocities nobody can check. Maps of Spanish minefields drawn by artists who have never left Manhattan. Between them, they sell over 1 million copies a day, and every invented horror sells more. They need one event violent enough to make Americans demand blood. The battleship Maine is anchored in Havana harbour to protect American citizens. At 9:40 that evening, 5 tons of powder in her forward magazines detonate. The bow is torn off and the ship settles into the mud. 266 men are dead. The most thorough modern investigation points at a coal bunker fire igniting the magazine beside it. An accident. The journal doesn't wait for an investigation. Within 2 days, its front page announces the Maine was destroyed by an enemy and offers $50,000 for the culprit's name. The world is only marginally more careful. Neither has a single witness. Both have their biggest sales day ever. Remember the Maine. To hell with Spain. It is not a government slogan, it is newspaper copy, chanted in the streets within a week. Congress is buried in letters. Pulitzer privately doubts the whole story and prints it anyway because the world cannot be the paper telling America to calm down. On April 25th, the United States declares war. Hearst does not watch his war from an office. He charters a steamship, sails to Cuba with his own reporters, and when a Spanish vessel runs aground, he personally takes 26 shipwrecked sailors prisoner and hands them to the American fleet. Then he writes it up himself, in the first person. The war lasts 10 weeks. Theodore Roosevelt charges up San Juan Hill and rides out a national hero. Spain loses an empire. Of the roughly 2,400 Americans who die, fewer than 400 fall in combat. The rest are taken by typhoid, yellow fever, and dysentery in filthy camps. In the Philippines, the fighting grinds on for years and kills far more. None of that sells papers. And here the feud turns. Pulitzer looks at what he has just helped do, and he is horrified. He tells his editors the world is finished with sensation. Accuracy is now the law of the house. He spent 30 years perfecting the screaming newspaper, and now he starts dismantling his own invention. Hearst does the exact opposite. The reformed world starts doing the job properly. In 1908, the paper exposes a secret $40 million payment behind the Panama Canal and names the president's own brother-in-law. Theodore Roosevelt has Pulitzer prosecuted for criminal libel and tries to jail him. Pulitzer fights it to the Supreme Court and wins. The man who sold a war has just made press freedom law. Hearst, meanwhile, is about to be blamed for a killing. For years his papers attacked President McKinley. One journal verse in 1900 muses in print about assassination. In September 1901, McKinley is shot dead in Buffalo. The country turns on Hearst. He is hanged in effigy, his papers burned and boycotted. Because what Hearst actually wants is not headlines. It is power. He wins a seat in Congress, runs for mayor of New York, and loses, runs for governor and loses, chases the presidential nomination, and never gets close. He can manufacture a war, own 28 newspapers, reach one American in 4, and cannot get himself elected to anything that matters. Joseph Pulitzer dies in 1911 aboard his silent yacht in Charleston Harbour, blind at 64. Then his will is opened. He has left $2 million to Columbia University to found the first school of journalism in America and to fund annual prizes for the best reporting in the country. The man who perfected the screaming headline has endowed its cure. The first Pulitzer Prizes are awarded in 1917. Today they are the highest honor in American journalism, given for exactly the qualities Pulitzer's own world threw away in 1898. Verification, restraint, evidence. His name now means the opposite of what he did. Hearst's name means what they both did. Hearst lives to 88, building a hilltop castle in California. In 1941, a young director makes a film about a newspaper baron who buys everything and is loved by nobody. Hearst offers the studio cash to burn the negative, bans the title from his papers, and fails. Citizen Kane is now his monument. So here is the answer to my opening question. The man who spent his fortune punishing what those front pages did was Joseph Pulitzer, the man who helped write them. He built the machine, drove it into a war, then paid, in cash and in his own name, to have it judged forever. Hearst never apologized for a single line. He had already won the argument about what news would be. Every fake headline you argue about today runs on the machine these two built in 1898. So whose side are you on? Pulitzer, who burned it down and then paid for the fire brigade? Or Hearst, who never pretended it was anything but a business? Tell me in the comments. If you'd have sided differently, hit like and subscribe. A new Feud opens the file every week. Next time, a handshake deal collapses at the last second, and one of the richest men on earth builds a car for a single purpose: to humiliate the other in front of the whole world at Le Mans. Ford versus Ferrari. The file is already open.